I think I'm gonna get as specific as I'm gonna get.
Oh, I'm
Um,
holding on over here,
and I
John.
want the
I'm holding on.
and I want the editors to be very careful with my pronouns because I'm gonna keep it a they. I am quite familiar with the career of a black scholar where their stack of articles physically would be about this high. They are now well past 60. They have done about what they are going to do. They began with a relatively innovative observation or three, but never followed it up with anything else of remotely that caliber. They participate to an extent in societal commentary based on their area of expertise, but nobody would say that their academic contribution was terribly significant on any level. I have now spent decades watching that person get one plum job after another. They can barely sit still in a solid university position before they get canvassed, headhunted to take on some other position. And at each place, they arrive celebrated as the great mm. And the truth is, if you know their discipline, you know that they've never really done much. They have a certain courtly presence, and yeah, that charm is definitely there, but their entire career has been based on a certain symbolism. There's this amen chord in the air whenever their name comes up. And some people would say, is that such a bad thing? And it's not as if this means that somebody didn't invent penicillin or something like that. But it does foster a sense that what's interesting about Black scholars is just their Blackness and their coolness and their societal intent, rather than, God damn it, I have to say their chops. Chops, not implying that my chops are, 10.5 or anything near it, but chops. And also, I observe such a person and see that when it comes to being a presence for younger scholars, there carries in the air an idea that what you impart to younger people is issues of intent, issues of opposition, not hot-headed. This person's politics aren't extreme. And as a matter of fact, there's something I could say about this person's politics, which I won't because it would be too specific. But there's a sense that what you impart is issues of attitude and position, rather than inspiring people with new ways of looking at things, with projects that they could embark upon, with ways of pushing the frontiers of a field forward. Instead, you have breakfast and you're charming together, you're Black together. And I consider that to be a hindrance, in that those younger scholars aren't being taught to push harder and to think outside the box, which is, after all, the nature of what we're supposed to be doing, not just as Black people, but as academics in general, as people who are interested in what we might call the life of the mind. Disturbs me. And the problem is that that scholar is not an anecdote, but one watches that sort of scholar and thinks, is this a good thing? And even apart from all of the condescension, the way everybody's face lights up whenever that person is talked about, even beyond that, I think that it doesn't serve our purposes as Black scholars well. And I'm sure you've seen similar examples in your career. There, I got through it. I didn't mess up the pronouns. There's nothing specific. Nobody could hold me. But I needed to discuss this individual.
Well, I can predict the reactions to this segment of our conversation, which is that we are insufferable, smug, self aggrandizing elitist who are declaring ourselves to be the sole Black people worthy of the kinds of academic accolades that, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, man. I mean, uh, maybe I have to plead guilty. You know, I know.
You mean like you feel like you're the only one?
I'm not the only one,
me.
of course, but we are few. In the nature of the case, we are few. I mean, when we call, or I call Ibram X. Kendi, professor at Boston University, where I used to teach, an empty suit, I stand on that, man. I mean, I don't see any depth. I've read books that have made me think I'm engaged with a mind that has mastery over a discipline and that has a profound set of insights to convey. And I don't see that there, you know. And, um, so I plead guilty. I'm an elitist. What are you gonna do with me now? I want black excellence. I
It's
want
just
black excellence in the same register and with the same currency that Jewish excellence is measured. They don't have to talk about it anymore because they are simply doing it. I want it in the same currency as Asian excellence is measured. They don't, again, have to crow about being Asians and having Asianness injected into anything. They simply master the material. I don't want handouts. I don't want to be accommodated and have people look the other way and not apply the same standard of judgment to me as they would anybody else. I want the referee report to be done blind without knowing who I am. And when my article gets accepted in the journal, I want to be able to say, there, I'm a player, just like anybody else. You don't need to know my color to know that I'm here and I'm making a contribution. I don't care if it doesn't work out to be 12% of the population. It can be 5%, it can be 3%. But if the people who are doing it, they're doing the real deal. They're doing astrophysics. They're doing mathematics in the way that anybody is doing it. They're doing theoretical economics in the way that anybody else is doing it. That's what I want.
and see that's the nut of the problem here and how somebody like us feels about affirmative action, which is that there's this idea, tacit but strong, this is the worst kind of idea, that for black people and black people only, I'm going to be agnostic about Latinos, that there's a discussion that I'm not qualified to have, but certainly for black people, there is a sense that to do it the way everybody else is doing it is inauthentic. So if it's a Chinese American student, yeah, they just have to do what everybody else does, and there's no question. But when it comes to us, to make that demand is asking us to be inauthentic to ourselves. And I don't think that makes sense. I think it's condescending. And it plays into the whole idea of we must change standards to admit as many of these people as possible instead of making it so that they are up to the standards. We're going to pretend to question what we think of as excellence in order to cover our butts about anti-racism. And for people who think that you and I are elitists to say that, well, despite the fact that I'm wearing a sweater vest today, I say no, we're not elitists. We are concerned with our people. We are concerned with what it means to be a modern American person. We have a basic historical perspective, and I think we have a faith in our own people that those who think of themselves ahead of the curve these days do not have, or there are those among us who think that somehow there's this new kind of excellence that's black excellence. And as I've said before, I get the feeling that deep down, what that excellence is supposed to be is volume and a certain relationship to regular rhythmic beats. And I don't think that's enough to be a truly successful people. And we've got to work on it. It just won't do. And if we have to be among the few voices who, call it out, then I'm quite willing to be called all sorts of names for doing it. Because I don't think we're saying this from some evil Republican right wing. That's not to imply that Republicans or the right wing are inherently evil. But people hear this as a message from the right or as a message from Fox News. No, this is a message from just people. That's something that people really need to understand.
John, I don't know, man. I think we may have reached an appropriate stopping point for this conversation.
Notice that we're both really upset about this. And yet there's a certain kind of, like both of us are sitting here angry. We're doing a Glenn show and both of us are sitting here stewing in our own decades of anger about this. And yet there's a certain kind of person who genuinely thinks that we're just mouthing these things because Tucker Carlson wants to hear it, or because we think we can get $20,000 a pop by giving speeches to Tucker Carlson saying these things. Folks, we mean it. This is real. Now, you may call us on what we're wrong about, but this is not a performance. I am not shilling for the right, and I don't think you are either. This stuff is deep. We feel it as deeply as the other people do.
Indeed, John, that's well put. I'm not only angry, I'm sad, I'm despondent. Um, and uh, because we're losing or have lost,
We are
you
losing.
know. Um,
We are losing.